He is Pete Sweeney. He does everything in Kansas City, pretty much. Morning radio, Chiefs stuff, barbecue. Does he do barbecue? Let's find out. Pete, how are you, man?
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't know what I'm going to be pimping right now. I could be trying to get you all kinds of barbecue from Kansas City here.
Listen, I'm not one to, listen, pimping ain't easy. But it's worth it. It's worth it at least. You got to try, you know what I mean?
You got to pimp barbecue if you're from Kansas
absolutely,
City.
man.
Right now, the city is pimping quite a bit of Chiefs Kool-Aid, given the Mahomes news.
Yeah, but is there one person in Kansas City who's saying, man, what a terrible decision that was? How are they giving this guy all this money? Is there one person saying that? I can't imagine there is.
I think the vast majority of Chiefs fans here, as yes, are very, very happy. I would say we get a lot of mentions between Arrowhead Pride and my work with the radio station and so on and so forth. And there is a slim percentage of fans that are worried, okay, how are we going to have other players on this team? But if you really look at the details of the contract, somehow, some way, at least it seems, and again, this is the organization sort of saying it itself, they were able to give this same number out and still have room to pay other players that they're going to surround him with, and they think they're going to be good now for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, by the looks of this thing, they all the dead money is gone after the 2024 season, which is pretty slick.
Yeah, and what's wild about that and just so unique is that it's just such a young player, and you mentioned that in 2024 that the dead money is gone. 5 years from now, Patrick Mahomes is only going to be 29 years old. Right. It is incredible that he's been able to accomplish so much. This is a player, and again, people are always stunned at this, but it's true. He's never lost a single game so far in his couple of years as starters by more than one score. A single game. He's never lost by more than one score. So he was able to win a Super Bowl before he lost by more than one score in a single game. And so if you're ever going to give this type of 10-year ridiculous contract to anybody, it seems like Mahomes should be the guy.
Now, when you hear 10-year ridiculous contract, you look around. I mean, it's been a while. Michael Vick got a 10-year. Donovan McNabb here in Philly got a 12-year contract when he was with the Eagles. And don't forget Drew Bledsoe, which was a bad contract because right after he got the 10-year extension, he got hurt, and then that brought in Tom Brady as a seventh-round draft pick that came in and became the greatest player of all time.
Right, and so you're dealing with like his history right here, and I'll be honest, I've been covering the Chiefs now for 6 years in Kansas City, and I was always the guy who would sort of shoot it straight. During the Alex Smith days, I had my questions about whether he was good enough, and there were reasons to criticize the defense and the way that it was under Bob Sutton. Sometimes I know people are very passionate about the Chiefs. They would want to hear some of my negative comments on this, but there's nothing negative to say about Patrick Mahomes. You could search far and wide with this guy. Maybe you make a case, he can't survive the way that he goes out of structure and out of the pocket and things like that, but he seems to make the right decisions at the right time, and there's just not a lot to correct and be upset about, and that's what's amazing. I just think given his age, I just keep going back to the age thing, because you've seen quarterbacks in history where it takes a few years. Peyton Manning, Brett Favre come to mind, where it takes a few years for them to really come into their own. It seemed like this guy, from the second he stepped on the field for his one lone start in 2017 for the Chiefs to see if they had something there, he's just been dazzling with different plays that you never thought you would see. We've seen the no-look. We've seen the left-handed pass. We've seen this wasp play in the Super Bowl that all of a sudden sparked the Chiefs to win their first championship in 50 years. So, yeah, it's scary times ahead when you're committing that much money, but if you're ever going to do it and feel the most sure about anybody in the entire league right now, to me, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, Pete, what do you think of the likelihood is that he not only plays out this contract, but plays it out without renegotiation of some sort?
Yeah, I tend to think that there is going to be some negotiation along the way. When you put the numbers in front of you, and we just discussed the dead cap and how there's no more dead cap after year number 5, what sticks out to me is 2027, and it's incredible to think about with just how long 2020 has seemed like, so this is a long time away. But the cap hit for 2027 right now, as it stands, is $60 million. To me, that might be something where if the Chiefs are competitive and they've got this crazy dynasty going along, who knows how many championships they've won by then, maybe it's a couple, who knows. You may want to adjust it from there, end up giving him more money in what would be the long term, from that year. 6 years from now, he'll be 30 years old, and still we've seen quarterbacks have a lot of success after the age of 30. So maybe you go something and say, okay, we're going to even extend this further, spread the money out, give you more room, and you can adjust from there. But until that point, I think you're in pretty good shape. So I see this going from 2020 to 2026, which is 7 seasons. I think they'll keep this initial deal.
We're talking with Pete Sweeney in Kansas City, covers the Chiefs, has a morning show there in KC on 610. It's interesting because when I go to the Super Bowl every year, and his agent is one of our good friends. And so when we were at the Super Bowl, Lee Steinberg, a couple years ago, when Mahomes, before he was even drafted, the young Pat Mahomes was walking around with his mom and Lee Steinberg, and he came over to our table, and we got a chance to talk to his mom and talk to him. And Lee said it to me, and Lee's had a lot of great clients. He said, this kid is special. After Robin and I spoke with him and gave him some swag and stuff, you could see right there the poise that he had. You could see that this kid was going to be special.
He was adorable. He was like a little bit shy.
He's a special, special kid. And that's why when Lee Steinberg saw him, because remember, it's been a long stretch since he's had a quarterback, because he was the quarterback agent. He had all those great guys back in the day. And now he's got this kid. And imagine that. We're going to have Lee on later on this week. I want to know what his cut is of this deal. What do you think he's getting, 5%? Or
Yeah, for those that don't realize this, too, Lee Steinberg is the real-life Jerry Maguire, and I feel like he maybe should have saved that show me the money line for this day. It seems like he might have used it a little bit too early. I mean, you look at it, it's going to be $450 million has been thrown out there, $477. It can get as high as $503. I tweeted out yesterday, what's cooler than $500,000? $500 million, because that's what Patrick Mahomes just was able to get. Insane money when you're talking about it, and I keep going back to this sentiment. What's wild about it, and the most wild about it, is this insane $500 million number. But in the sense of the player, you feel like the team still got a team-friendly deal when you talk about guarantee mechanisms and how they have control as to whether or not they commit to the next year, and where they have this great relationship with the guy you mentioned, Lee Steinberg, where if you get to a year like 2027, it seems like the relationship is so good between Steinberg's partner Chris Cabot, and Brett Beach that there could be a restructure that'll benefit the franchise. And the kid wants to be like Michael Jordan. I just got off the Patrick Mahomes Zoom press conference, and that was my question to him. He had mentioned watching The Last Dance previously, and everybody was gripped on that this summer. Mahomes was right along with that, and he realizes that he had to take less money, a little bit less money, and he did. Amazing to say that as well, because he wants that legacy. He wants to really build something where maybe he gives himself a fighting chance to be the greatest NFL player of all time, and I think this is the first step in that direction.
Yeah, and as I said, is 141 million plus guaranteed, and that gets eaten up in largely those first 5 years. And it's a lot of roster bonuses and base salary. But I was looking at your tweet at PG Sween on Twitter. Patrick Mahomes said he talked to Andy Reid before signing the deal to make sure he had no plans to retire anytime soon. Because Reid, obviously he'll be in his mid-70s by the time this deal gets to the end. So that was a big deal for him, right?
Yeah, I've been to every Andy Reid press conference since the beginning of the 2014 season. Like, he's a quarterback whisperer. I feel like I have a sense of when he's going in certain directions, and almost like an Andy Reid whisperer at this point. And even before this deal, I would tell you, to see his face lit up when 2018 began in training camp, it seemed like even though he had done 18, 19 years of head coaching, that his career had almost restarted. And everyone in Kansas City, and I've heard this, is like, well, once he gets to the Super Bowl or 2 or 3 or whatever like that, he's going to retire. Eric Bieniemy should stay and be the next one in line. Andy Reid sees this kid, and don't forget now, and you wouldn't know it from looking at that, unfortunately, but Andy Reid is still 6 years younger than Bill Belichick. And now that he's got this kid locked up in Kansas City, they're not thinking about 1 or 2 titles. They're thinking about Tom Brady and Bill's 6. And I think this just reaffirms it today where, yes, Patrick Mahomes talked to Andy Reid to make sure he wasn't retiring anytime soon. And you think about the next 6 years, 7 years of this thing. If they're able to get 2 or 3, then all of a sudden you're at 4, and 6 seems reasonable. And so as long as Andy Reid is healthy, I think he continues to coach Patrick Mahomes until he's ready to go and his family's ready for him to join that aspect of his life full time.
I don't think there's any doubt that Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach right now, even if he doesn't win another Super Bowl. All the years here in Philly and the great teams that he had, and he didn't win a Super Bowl, and that finally wore down, and he was here for such a long time. Then when he was in Kansas City for a few years, there were people saying, you see, it's not working over there. And now all of a sudden he's a genius again. And he's always been. You're absolutely right, Pete. He's absolutely a quarterback whisperer. And the guys that he brings around him, and he has around these quarterbacks, we always talk about the room, the quarterback room. He always has a good quarterback room wherever he goes.
Yeah, and I look at the quarterbacks historically for him, and it was Brett Favre when he wasn't a head coach in Green Bay, and then you think about the Donovan McNabb days, followed by Michael Vick for that period of time, followed by Alex Smith, and these quarterbacks are all really good names, and they all brought a little something to the table. But what I think about in Patrick Mahomes is he finally found if this was a guy that was in his 60s playing Madden, and he could create a player, this is exactly who Andy Reid would have created. And that, even at the age of 60 years old, has to give you some new life. And that's why I think he's in this for the long haul. As long as he stays healthy, he has a chance here. If he can get another 1 or 2 in the next 5 years to start maybe gunning for Bill Belichick. I firmly believe, and Andy Reid would never say this, I firmly believe that he wants to go down as the greatest head coach of all time. And he has a long way to go, but now he has a piece in place that probably gives him hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, with this coach and quarterback in place for the time being, now they're now a spot where guys would want to go there, take a little bit less money just to play with this kid and see if whatever players can get rings now. That's the place where you go to get rings.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Kansas City, Missouri would be a destination, but I think you started to see that with Indianapolis, during Peyton Manning's days, where all of a sudden some people wanted to play for the Colts. And I think you will see some of these guys that are chasing rings towards the end of their career maybe take a little bit less money to play in Kansas City. That Mahomes discount will start to come through. It's a lesser-known name, but it already started this offseason, and a guy from the New York Giants, Antonio Hamilton. It was widely reported that he took money, and I know that's not a big name, but you're starting to see that a little bit, and I'm eager to see the first big-name receiver, for example, who might have a year or 2 left and eventually comes to Kansas City when they need an extra piece. Andy Reid was able last year to convince Terrell Suggs to not retire. Remember the Chiefs claimed Terrell Suggs, and Terrell Suggs was probably looking at Kansas City saying, I'm going to go to Missouri. Well, you can bet he was damn happy he did, because he ended up getting another Super Bowl out of it, and probably will retire now on top, because you really haven't heard a lot from Terrell Suggs. And he played a nice role for the Chiefs down the stretch. So, yeah, those things are beginning to happen already in Kansas City.
And the other interesting thing about the whole thing is I saw Mahomes said that he's got 20 to 21 guys, core players, who are still locked in. So it's not like they have to go out and put a lot of pieces around him. They already have a nucleus, especially on offense, that they can go for a couple of years without having to worry about, we can't afford to pay this guy. We can't bring another guy in right here.
Yeah, you know what ended up happening, too, and this probably is underrated a little bit nationally, is there were all these questions with Tyreek Hill with last summer, and no one exactly knew what was going on. It ended up being through police reporting and whatnot and everything. He ended up being free of guilt for many of these allegations, but they weren't sure at the time of the NFL draft what was going to happen with Tyreek Hill. So they go and take this speedster in Georgia's McCole Hardman, and all of a sudden Hardman seems like one of the better young players in the league, and nobody really knows about him because Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins are good enough for the Chiefs. Sammy Watkins played a big role for the Chiefs these last 2 playoffs. But Watkins only has a year left, and he expressed desire this offseason where he wants to maybe make his own. And you still are going to have McCole Hardman, who's a budding receiver that is going to be on his rookie contract. So you don't even really going to have to worry about a second receiver maybe for another 2 years. And that allows you to sort of go through the draft and wait on taking a guy. You wonder if they address tight end before that, because Travis Kelce, you blink and he's already 30 years old. So you wonder if they get the next tight end in line in one of the upcoming drafts. But they're in really good shape on the offensive side of the football. And what's scary with Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark on the defensive side is that they become a complete team, and now you have Mahomes who has job security and really a desire to be one of the greatest. It's going to be a tough place to play, especially considering it is really loud, and once fans get back in the building, it is technically the loudest outdoor sports arena in the world.
Last thing, of course, and that's the question a lot of people are asking, since I don't like to get into personal things, the Pat Mahomes' girlfriend memes from last year, where a lot of people were not happy with her exuberance. What's going to happen now is, I mean, if he's going to get married and she's going to be the one, is there going to be, there's got to be a really, really, really long prenup, I would imagine, if it goes that way. Am I right here?
Well, you know what? I mean, you would think with this contract that this rock is going to be weighing down her left hand. I don't know how she's going to be able to even walk through life, but I'll say this. She was with Patrick Mahomes before he went to Texas Tech.
They were in high school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not someone he was with and even, was this budding player at college. I mean, this is a girl that's been with him forever, and he seems to really appreciate that. And for everyone's opinions on the outside, it seems like she's provided the foundation for him. And I talked about, it's funny, I talked about how McCole Hardman is an underrated aspect of this. So was the fact that I think he's had someone that he could rely on since he was younger. You don't have that distraction of all of these women. I mean, he would be one of the most popular guys in the entire country, but he's been settled down since he's gained all of this popularity, and I actually think that helps him in a weird way.
No, you're absolutely right, and I wanted to bring that up, not to shame her, but your point is absolutely right. People think, she just came along, he met her in a Kansas City bar getting some barbecue. She's been there before he was, and that's important.
Yeah,
because guys get money, and women are coming out of the woodwork everywhere.
Exactly.
Who want to latch on, and that's a great situation.
He knows for a fact that she liked him before all this, without any of the money, without any of the fame. So that's a big plus for her.
You look up a definition of ride or die in the dictionary. There's a picture of Brittany Matthews for sure.
Exactly right. Even though all those mean guys and gals out there would see her and thought that she was she was sort of like a little over the top.
A little?
She was a little over the top.
A little? I would shut her down.
If I was sitting in the box with now we met his dad, Pat Mahomes, the former pitcher, and his mom and his family, great people. If I was in that box, I'd be over the top too, and I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm a man. Yes.
If the patterage is the worst part of Mahomes, I think Kansas City could live with that.
Exactly.
What does this do to Chris Jones's contract situation? Anything?
I think it makes it a little tougher. If there's one good thing, it is in the rearview mirror, and Brett Beach can finally turn to Chris's representation and say, look, this is what we have to deal with. I mean, you can either take it or leave it at this point. I don't know if Chris Jones is necessarily in the long-term plans because he wants that $20 million a year average. Maybe he's inspired by Patrick Mahomes taking, and again, crazy to say, a little bit less money and wants to take less money to stay in Kansas City. I tend to think he wants what it's worth, but it's in his best interest, I think, to sign the deal. $16.1 million would be more than he's made in 4 years of his NFL career, so he makes that money, and then you prove the Chiefs wrong. Have another contract year, and if they're not willing to pay you, they'll move you to someone who is, and I think you make some money with somewhere else. But this is a fan favorite in Kansas City. I think a lot of people are hoping if he does move on to an NFC team or to a team, it's with an NFC team, so they could root for Chris Jones, and it won't be necessarily against the Chiefs.
Good stuff from Kansas City. Pete Sweeney. Now, are you a barbecue connoisseur? Do you have to be an expert to live there, Pete? Last thing.
I'm actually originally from New York. Ended up in Kansas City from an internship. Once you get here, I don't know if you guys are Harry Potter fans, but it's like the sorting hat in Harry Potter. You have to sort of pick which barbecue you like the best, and that is a deal that everybody goes through.
Absolutely, but there's no bad barbecue, is there, in Kansas City? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, Andy Reid, to avoid the conversation, because people will get mad if you don't pick their favorite place, he'll always say, look, I'm still trying to find one that I don't like. And that's how he gets that.
That's a good one.
That's why we love Andy. Hey, Pete, great stuff, man. Appreciate the insight and the local knowledge there. Thanks for coming on the show today, man. Thank you.
All right, take care.
There he is, Pete Sweeney. Or you can call him PG Sween. or KC Chiefs at Arrowhead Pride, Harry? At Arrowhead Pride.
Well, that's who he writes for.
I know he does.
Yeah, he's the writer for the.
He's not the only writer for Arrowhead Pride.
No,
though.
but he's the lead writer.
Exactly. You think we're going to have on like some scrub, some intern?
No, only
some
the best.
Conlon Farrell type guy in Kansas City? No, I'm just kidding, man. He's just out of college.